Let's talk about that thing that you know you should do, but you haven't yet. Like that email you know you should send, conversation you know you should have, the weight you know you should lose, the money you know that you should save, the job you know you should get, the college you know you need to apply to, the conversation you know you need to have, the job that you need to put a greater effort into, the apology that you need to ask for, the forgiveness that you need to give, the marriage that you need to work on, that relationship that you need to mend. Let's talk about those things in life that you and I know that we ought to do but haven't yet. Let's talk about procrastination. Or we could do that next Sunday if you wanted to. Okay. Sorry. That worked both times. Okay, good. I didn't know. That thing, procrastination. Now, procrastination is an interesting thing because whether you're a Christian or not, you know this inherently. You may not want to admit it, but you and I both know, whether you're a Christian or not, that tomorrow is not guaranteed. We think that the odds are pretty good, right, that we're going to make tomorrow. I mean, you've got some plans tomorrow, I assume, but it's not guaranteed. And you know that, and I know that. And so we know that we have today, we know we have right now, but tomorrow is not guaranteed. And there's a guy that wrote a book in the New Testament named James, who was the brother of Jesus. And he talks about this whole principle, this whole futility of life and just how short and brief our time on earth is. And in James chapter 4, verse 14, he would write this. He goes, "How do you know what your life will be like tomorrow? Your life is like the morning fog. It's here a little while, and then it's gone." In other words, going, man, tomorrow, you don't know what it's going to be like. You don't know if it's going to be here, but you have today. And then a few verses later, in verse 17, he would say this. He would go, "Remember, it's a sin to know what you ought to do and then not do it." So what James is saying is going, listen, those things that you know you ought to do, those conversations you need to have, that forgiveness you need to give, that addiction you need to deal with, the marriage you need to work on, do those things sooner rather than later. Do those things today, right now, not tomorrow, not next week, not next year, not next Christmas, but today. But all too often we procrastinate, and the reason why that you and I procrastinate is we are really good at making excuses. Like, fantastic. I mean, they sound legit. I'm too busy, I'm stressed out, I don't have, that skill set. And the problem with my line of work, being a pastor, is I can make my excuses sound spiritual. Oh, I don't think the Lord's leading me to do that. No, Chris, the Lord's leading you to mow your yard. Do that. Yeah. But we make great excuses and we procrastinate, and procrastinate literally means pushing it off to tomorrow. If you take the two Latin words, pro and crastinus, pro means forward, crastinus means belonging to tomorrow. So when we procrastinate, we are literally pushing it off and letting it belong to tomorrow. I'll deal with it tomorrow, I'll deal with it at a later date. We make great excuses. Now, you inherently know this about procrastination, but let me word it or phrase it in a way that might make it stick when it comes to procrastination. And it's this. Procrastination, it's born from excuses, but it breeds regrets. Procrastination is born from excuses. Well, I would, but I don't have time. I should. But it breeds regrets. And then so it's moments on the other side of procrastination going, man, I should have done that. I ought to have done that. I waited too long. I missed that opportunity. And in my life, I've had regrets, big regrets, small regrets, but one of the more memorable regrets happened because I procrastinated. Now, if you ask Brianna, what is one of Chris's most memorable regrets in life, she would bring this instance up to you. And it was when we were newlyweds, been married 3 months, 6 months, trying to buy furniture, but didn't have a whole lot of money. And so, it was before kids, and so we've been looking for furniture. We're driving one Saturday, we're driving through a neighborhood, we pass this house in the driveway, the truck is backed up to the street, and in the pickup bed of the truck is a leather recliner. And it's not just any leather recliner, it's fancy, y'all. It's got the little nail heads, on there, and it's not pleather, like it's the legit, on there. And I'm going, oh my goodness. Probably a couple $1,000 recliner, brand new, and on this pickup truck, it just said $100. And she goes, Chris, we got to stop. We got to get this. You've always wanted a recliner, $100 for that thing. And my inner cheapskateness came out. And I said, well, let me pray about it. Again, spiritual excuse. So I go, I don't know. Let's let me wait. That's $100. Man, that's a lot of money. She goes, yeah, but it's a $2,000 recliner. I said, well, let's think about it. And she goes, okay. So we go and we eat lunch for a couple hours. And I go, okay, we need that recliner. Let's go back. We go back, and of course, gone. $100 for a $2,000 recliner. Gone, regret. Why? Because I procrastinated. Now, Brianna, she did not say, I told you so, but she did give me a look. You know that look, and it says, this marriage is going to go way better if you just listen to what I say. Something along those lines. Procrastination. Born from excuses, but it breeds regrets. And we're going to look at a really weird story today. And we're finishing up our series, The Greatest Story Is Never Told. And it's a story that a man procrastinated. And you're going to look at it and read it and go, why on earth did he do that? Like, it makes no sense. There's an obvious problem thing in his life that's affecting not only his life, but everybody else around him. He procrastinates, and you and I are going to go, why? Why'd you do that? And I think oftentimes when it comes to procrastination in your life and my life, we push it off till tomorrow or next week or next month or next year. We can ask the same question going, why? Why did you delay the things that needed to be fixed or changed today? If you got a Bible, go ahead and grab it. Go to Exodus chapter 8. Exodus chapter 8. If you don't have a Bible, it'll be up on the screens. Let me just set up this story for you. You know the premise surrounding it. The Israelites are the slaves to the Egyptians. God has called a guy named Moses to deliver his people from Egypt. If you've seen the movie Ten Commandments, you know how this goes. So Moses has gone before Pharaoh, he and his brother Aaron, and they're in the middle of the 10 plagues. The 10 plagues. This is plague number 2, and it's the plague of the frogs. And you're going to see this really weird, strange situation and a phrase from Pharaoh unfold through procrastination. Exodus chapter 8, we'll start in verse 1. It says, then the Lord said to Moses, go back to Pharaoh and announce to him, this is what the Lord says. Let my people go so they can worship me. If you refuse to let them go, I will send a plague of frogs across your entire land. The Nile River will swarm with frogs. They will come up out of the river and into your palace, even into your bedroom and onto your bed. They will enter the houses of your officials and your people. They will even jump into your ovens and your kneading bowls. Frogs will jump on you, your people, and all your officials. This isn't just like a frog. This isn't, oh gosh, the pond in our neighborhood has a few more frogs than usual. This is a plague. This is frogs everywhere. In the bed, in the Tupperware, in the microwave, when you're going out. They're everywhere. All over, plague of frogs is what's going to happen. And God says, this is what's going to happen. And look what happens as Moses begins to act on God's behalf. Verse 5. Then the Lord said to Moses, tell Aaron, raise the staff in your hand over all the rivers, canals, and ponds of Egypt, and bring up frogs over all the land. So Aaron raised his hand over the waters of Egypt, and frogs came up and covered the whole land. But the magicians were able to do the same thing with their magic. They too caused frogs to come up on the land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron and begged, plead with the Lord to take the frogs away from me and my people. I will let your people go so they can offer sacrifices to the Lord. So all of a sudden it happens. Pharaoh, he's waving the white flag going, I give up. Yo, time out, time out. Tell the Lord, take the frogs away and you and your people can go. I give up. This is a bit much. It's frogs everywhere. And then look what Moses says. Verse 9. You set the time, Moses replied. Tell me when you want me to pray for you, your officials, and your people. Then you and your houses will be rid of the frogs. They will remain only in the Nile River. Moses goes, great. You just set the time. Whenever you want this to happen, you say the word, you set the time, and the Lord will make it happen. Now, let me just ask you this question. If you were in the position of Pharaoh, or let's just say you're the president of your HOA, and there are frogs all over your neighborhood, in the community pool, on the sidewalks, up in your oven and everything, and all of a sudden somebody comes and goes, hey, I can get rid of these frogs. You just set the time. When would you like these frogs to be gone? What would you say? Now. Okay, good. You're normal people. Good. All right. Now, like right now, like right this instant, if I'm setting the time, like yesterday, like just get rid of the frogs. And look what happens in verse 10. Verse 10. Do it tomorrow, Pharaoh said. What? Like, I wish the Lord was going, just kidding, we got rid of it. Like, there's no just kidding. It's not a joke. Do it tomorrow. All right, Moses replied, it will be as you have said, then you will know that there is no one like the Lord our God. The frogs will leave you and your houses, your officials, and your people, and they will remain only in the Nile River. Frogs are everywhere. People can't eat, they can't sleep, they're all over the land. Moses goes, when would you like the frogs to be gone? Pharaoh goes, tomorrow. Tomorrow? Yeah, do it tomorrow. So here's what I want you to grasp. What you and I, if we were there, what we would say to Pharaoh himself, and what I believe that the Lord is speaking to each and every one of us here today, and it's simply this phrase, don't spend one more night with the frogs. Don't spend one more night with the frogs. The frogs are those things in your life that you know you need to do, you know you need to get rid of, but I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it next week, I'll do it next quarter, I'll do it next Christmas, I'll do it some other time, but not today. Don't allow the frogs to invade your life one more day. There's a couple of things I want to point out about these frogs that I think that are true, not only in the text, but in our life. And the first thing is this, that the frogs are obvious. Frogs are obvious. Go back and look at verse 3, the middle part of verse 3. It says, they will enter the houses of your officials and your people. They will even jump into your ovens and your kneading bowls. Frogs will jump on you, your people, and all your officials. Now, no one in Egypt was scratching their head wondering, going, what is that weird smell? Like nobody's going, man, it smells a bit like, an amphibian. I just don't know what that smell is. Nobody at night when they're going, man, we hear this strange croaking sound at night. Does anybody know what could be causing that? Everybody in Egypt knew the problem was frogs. It's the stupid frogs. They're in the bowls, they're in the oven, they're in the beds, they're everywhere. The problem was obvious, not just to Pharaoh, but to everybody in the land going, man, we've got a problem. When there's a frog in your life, it is the obvious thing that everybody knows you've got to change this. It's friends telling you, it's your spouse telling you, it's your boss or your coworkers going, this needs to change. You've got a problem, you've got a habit you need to break, you've got a good habit you need to start. There's money that needs to be saved. There's weight that needs to be lost. There's a doctor that needs to be seen. There's a college that needs to be applied for. There's a marriage that needs to be fixed. There is a problem, and it's obvious to you and everyone else, but we'll do it tomorrow. We'll do it next week. We'll do it next month. We'll do it next year. And Pharaoh's there in the land. The obvious problem is the frogs, and you and I go, what in the world? But if you look at your own life, there's that thing that everybody knows that even you inherently know. The God's going, this needs to change. You're going, Lord, I'll mess with it tomorrow. And so here's the question I would ask that you would wrestle with today, and it's simply this. What is the obvious thing you need to do? What is the obvious thing that you need to do? What is the obvious thing that you need to fix? What's the obvious thing that's broken? What's the obvious thing that needs to change? What is the obvious frog in your life? But again, you and I, we are really, really good at coming up with great excuses. I would, but I'm busy. I don't have the skill set. And so we keep pushing it off. And all of a sudden, we wind up in a pile of regret. A week and a half ago, I was at my oldest son Daniel's football practice. And I took David, my second born. And I was watching Daniel practice. And David's playing on the playground with his friends. And so I'm there watching it. And one of David's friends comes up. And he goes, hey, Mr. Emmitt. I was like, yeah. He goes, David's laying on the ground. I was like, oh. I was like, okay. He's like, I think he's hurt. I was like, okay. So I walk on over, and there was the merry-go-round kind of spinning as fast as it possibly could, and apparently centrifugal force took over, and David was on the ground. And David's there, and he's a pretty tough kid. He's crying a little bit, and I go, hey, buddy, you okay? Yeah. So I reached down to help him up, and he wouldn't give me his right arm. He gave me his left arm, and I helped him up. And he gets up, and his right arm's like this. And I was like, doesn't look normal, but, I'm not a doctor, so you're like this, and kind of got this chicken wing, and he's crying a little bit. I was like, hey, buddy. And then I ask him, I go, hey, and this is probably a father figure coming. I go, hey, do you want to, just sit here and take a few breaths and wait it out and go back to playing, or do you want to go back home? And he goes, I'll wait it out. I was like, oh, good. Then I thought, what's Brianna going to say? And I was like, nah, buddy, we better go back to home to see your mom. And he goes, oh, okay. So we get in the car and we go back, and, he's walking in like this, kind of teary-eyed, and Brianna looks at him and she goes, that's not normal. I go, I know, I'm not a doctor. And so we did what any good parent would do. We YouTubed. What is the matter? And so we knew it was either dislocated shoulder or broken collarbone. She goes, man, we better take him to the urgent care. So we took him to the urgent care, and sure enough, broken collarbone there, and he's in his little sling right there. And it's there in that moment where I think it was obvious, like, this is not normal, right? My son does not walk around like something was going on. But I, in his life, gave him the ability to procrastinate and go, well, there's something wrong, but... And there's something broken in your life. It's obvious to you and obvious to everyone else, but someone has gone, you can push it off till tomorrow. You can see the counselor at a later date. You can go to the 12-step program at another time. You've got other things to do. Your life is broken. Relationships are broken. And you're going, I'll mess with it tomorrow. The frogs are obvious in your life. Everybody else knows it, including you. And so the question is, what is that obvious thing that needs to be done? And why in the world would you put that thing off until tomorrow? And the second thing I want you to notice about frogs is this, is that frogs affect others. Frogs affect others. I want you to look at verse 9. Verse 9, you set the time, Moses replied. Tell me when you want me to pray for you, your officials, and your people. Then you and your houses will be rid of the frogs. They will remain only in the Nile River. And then do it tomorrow, Pharaoh said. Notice this. It wasn't just Pharaoh who was plagued with the frogs. It was Pharaoh, his officials, and his people. The frogs affected way more than just Pharaoh himself or his family. It affected all of his people and all of his officials. But oftentimes we view procrastination through the lens of like a vacuum. We procrastinate going, well, it only affects us. And if you're honest with yourself, that thing that you're procrastinating on more than likely affects way more people than you could imagine. That relationship that you haven't mended, the money that you haven't saved for college, the weight the doctor keeps telling you to lose, the conversation that you need to have, the apology that you need to make, the forgiveness that you need to give. You're going, well, it just affects me. There's so many other people. There's friends, there's family, there's loved ones, there's coworkers, there's an organization you work in that it affects. Procrastination does not happen in a vacuum. And you see the frogs, and he goes, do it tomorrow. Now, I would love to have heard the conversation between his officials. Right after that happened, and one of the officials goes to the other and goes, well, Moses came back. Oh, man, what do you say? Well, Moses told Pharaoh, he just set the time, and the frogs will be gone. Moses said that? Yeah, God will get rid of the frogs. And what did Moses say? Just told Pharaoh, whenever he wants it to happen, it'll happen. Well, why are the frogs still here? Well, Pharaoh said to do it tomorrow. What? Yeah, why? I don't know. But he said do it tomorrow. Are you kidding me? I can't eat. I can't sleep. I turn on Netflix, frogs. I go to Amazon. Only thing I can order, frogs. There's frogs everywhere. I can't live like this. I can't go another night with frogs in my life. That's what Pharaoh said. There are things in your life that you're going, I'll push it off till tomorrow, next week, or next month, but the damage, the collateral damage that it has on the people around you is probably greater than you could imagine. And so here's the question. The question is, who would benefit by you taking care of that obvious thing? Who would it benefit if you took care of, if you changed that obvious thing? Procrastination put a face to it. put a face to it. If I change this, if I started this good habit, if I stopped this bad habit, if I addressed this addiction, if we repaired our marriage, who would it benefit other than me? And begin to put faces of friends or family or coworkers there and going, man, this is way bigger than just me. So we can procrastinate until all of a sudden that procrastination that was bred out of excuses now ends up in a pile of regrets, and now it affects way more than anybody we could ever imagine. And it didn't just happen overnight. It was obvious. There were things, there were warning signs. We go, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow, and all of a sudden it explodes, and there's carnal relationship damage all around us. Now, let me ask you this question. I'm going to divide the world up into two types of people. All right, I'm going to divide them up. I'm just by a show of hands, how many of you are, and which type of people are you? So how many of you, you're like me? You're normal, civilized human beings. Start there. That when your gas gauge on your car gets around a quarter tank or an eighth of a tank, you're thinking to yourself, I probably need to find a gas station. Just by a show of hands, you're going, okay, yep, very good, okay. How many of you are like my wife, in that life does not begin to get exciting until that needle is below the slash of the E? Just by a show of hands. What? Keep them up. Y'all crazy. Crazy. Like, there's a gauge on there on purpose. These cars are like 10 miles to empty, 5 miles to empty. You're going, I can make it to the airport and back. I'm going, no. That's my wife. My stress level goes up. It does. When it's below a quarter tank, I can't think about anything about where's the nearest gas station. Brianna, life just becomes exhilarating. She goes, I can make it. I'm like, no, don't. And last year, Brianna, she found herself in a gas station, and she took a picture. And the picture I'm about to show you is not made up or doctored in any way. So let me just show you this picture that she posted on Instagram about a year ago. Yeah. That's zero. Zero. Might as well have the emoji with the guy going, I don't know how much. So that picture is taken in a gas station on her way to church, y'all. And she goes, technically, I didn't run out of gas. I was like, technically, I guess you didn't. Now, just zoom out. I want to show you some of these hashtags. So she put on there, living on the edge. That was close. Whew, sorry, babe. Just my personality type. Now, I tell her this, tell her to her face, I'll tell you guys. Listen, I said, babe, that day you run out of gas, you will get no sympathy from me. It won't. Thank you. My people. Yeah. You knew. You don't just drive and all of a sudden the car goes, I'm done. There's a gauge, there's bells, there's lights, there's a hand that comes out and slaps you in the face going, stop. But you keep pushing on. I told Brianna, I said, when you run out of gas, you realize I'm the one that's going to have to go fill it up. I said, that affects me. I said, if you run out of gas, headed north on 400 at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, there's 1,000 people that are going to hate the Emmitt family. It impacts a lot of people. There are things in your life you're going, I'll do it tomorrow. It's not that big a deal. There are warning signs. There are gauges. There are lights. There are people going, change. Stop that. Start this. Save the money now. Lose the weight now. Have that conversation out. Repair the marriage now before it's too late. And you're going, I'll do it tomorrow. Do it next week. I got plenty of time. I'll figure it out. Next Christmas, we'll have that conversation. To all of a sudden, you move from a really great excuse to a life full of regrets and collateral damage all around you. And you're going, what happened? And what happened is you pushed it off until tomorrow. And so what is that frog in your life that you need to take care of today? Maybe it's a marriage that's fallen apart. Maybe it's an addiction that you're going, I've kind of got it under control, and all of a sudden it's really controlling your life. That thing that you thought was so great, but now is ruining your life. Now, here's what's interesting. The Egyptian culture had a lot of false gods and goddesses that they worshiped. And one of their goddesses was named Heket. Heket, H-E-K-E-T, sometimes spelled H-E-Q-E-T, Heket. Heket was a female body, but with the head of a frog. And this goddess would represent fertility, new life, or fruitfulness. So don't miss this. The thing that they thought would better their life was now ruining it. Right? The thing that they put up on a pedestal and think, this will make my life better, is now ruining their life. Right? That thing that you thought, this will make my life better, this grudge I'm holding against that person, this resentment or bitterness that I'm holding against that person, it makes me feel better, and all of a sudden now it's ruining your life. That addiction that you go, well, it's not that big a deal, it's not that big a deal, all of a sudden it's controlling you. That relationship that's on the fringe, that marriage that's falling apart, but you're going, you know what, it's just, we'll put on a fake facade, I don't want to see a counselor, that's embarrassing. Go do those things you need to do. Don't allow the frogs to spend one more day in your life. It's the obvious things that need to be fixed, and it's the things in your life that have left unattended not only affect you, but those around you. And so what are the frogs in your life, and how much longer will you allow them to stay in your life? Why not get rid of them? Why not fix the things? Why not do the obvious things today? I'm going to finish with this, and it's out of 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 1 and 2, and it is the absolute most important thing in your life and in my life to not procrastinate on. In 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 1 and 2, this is the Apostle Paul writing, and he writes this. He says, as God's partners, we beg you not to accept this marvelous gift of God's kindness and then ignore it. For God says, and then he quotes the prophet Isaiah, at just the right time I heard you, on the day of salvation I helped you. And then Paul writes, indeed, the quote-unquote right time is now. Today is the day of salvation. Paul is saying the same thing to James, and going, listen, you've got today. Tomorrow is not promised. It's not a for sure thing, but you have today. And I'm here to tell you that the most important thing to wrestle down in your life today is your salvation. Because it is an eternal decision that if not wrestled down, that if not acted upon today, could have eternal regrets. And maybe you've been here for a while, or maybe you've been watching online for a while, and you hear me talk about this, you hear me talk about Jesus and salvation, and you're going, man, yeah, one of these days I need to do that. One of these days I need to pray that prayer. One of these days I really need to get it settled right in my life. Today is that day. I don't know what's going to happen this afternoon to you. I don't know what's going to happen tonight or tomorrow or next week. But you have today, you have right now. And if you have not wrestled salvation down to the ground and going, I know Jesus is my Lord, my Savior, today is the day that should be wrestled to the ground. Don't walk out of these doors going, maybe, maybe not, I'm not quite sure. Know today that you are saved. There's nothing more important than that here today. And then for many of you here in this room, you know that you're saved. You know that you've trusted Jesus, but you've yet to get baptized. You go, man, I know, and I know it's today, but I didn't bring clothes. Every time they have it, I'm busy or out of town. There's always an excuse. It's a really cool story in Acts chapter 8. A guy named Philip leads, and the Bible is very specific, an Ethiopian eunuch to the Lord. He hears the good news, trust in Jesus. They're riding along in the little chariot, and the guy sees some water. He goes, hey, there's some water. Why can't I be baptized right now? And they go down there, and he gets baptized right there in that moment. And if you've trusted in Jesus Christ for your salvation, I'm here to tell you, there's some water out there in the courtyard. There's 2 baptistries filled to the brim. You're going, well, Chris, I didn't bring a swimsuit. I'm here in my church clothes. I'm not quite sure. Who cares? Like, who cares? Like, how cool of a story would that be if you go out in your church clothes, jeans and t-shirt, whatever, and you get baptized, and then you go to lunch afterwards soaking wet. You know, the waiter's going to come over and going, what happened? You're going, man, I got baptized today. Now give me my bloomin' onion. And you just shake your hair like that, like a dog, and just, it's going to be awesome. Yeah, well, but no, if you've never been baptized, man, now is the time, now is the moment. There's some great excuses out there, I get it. But when the moment is there and God goes, this is the time, this is the moment, today is the day of salvation. If you trust in Jesus and not been baptized, there's an opportunity right now, a moment to go, you know what? That's the next step in obedience, is to let everybody know. Because here's the thing. Yes, salvation and baptism, they impact you, but they impact way more people than you can imagine. Because there's people in your life that have been praying for you, praying for your salvation, or praying that day you'd get baptized. There's a church here that wants to celebrate with you and encourage you. And when you go, man, Jesus is my Lord, I'm getting baptized, there's people around that, man, that's an encouragement to. Man, this is why we show up to church and we serve and we give and we invite, because we want to see Jesus change lives. And when you're going, man, Jesus changed my life, for the rest of us going, that's all, this is why we exist, to see Jesus change lives. So what is that thing in your life, whether it's salvation or baptism or anything else, that you're going, I know this needs to change, I know this needs to be different, I know I need to have that conversation. It's not tomorrow, it's not next week, it's not next year, but today. The things that are obvious, the things that affect others, do those things today. Let me pray for us. With every head bowed and every eye closed, I don't know what your story of faith is. And again, I know many of you, you've walked into this room or you've logged on online, you've heard the good news of Jesus Christ, but you've never solidified that moment. Man, I'm here to tell you, today needs to be that day. The Bible is super clear. It says, all who call upon the Lord will be saved. And if you've never done that, you can just say something like this, but what's important that you mean it from the depths of your heart. Just say, today, Jesus, I know I'm a sinner, and without you, I cannot get into heaven. So come into my heart, Lord. Forgive me for my sins. Jesus, I'm asking you to be the King and the Savior of my life. I believe you died on the cross for my sins. I believe God raised you from the dead. And Jesus, I'm trusting in you and you alone for my salvation. Help me to live for you and walk for you for this day forward. Father, I pray for everybody else here in this room. Lord, my prayer is that thing in our life that we know we need to do but have not done yet, Lord, that we would have the courage and the wisdom to do it, to make the changes, to start the right habits, to stop the bad habits, to have the conversations, to do those things that you have called us to do today rather than tomorrow. We love you, Jesus, and ask all these things in your precious and holy name. Amen.